Hi, thank you, Shahrukh. And you've got that beautiful phoenix at the background. It's looking really impressive.
It's tapping me on my shoulder.
Yeah. Saying what?
That I need to continue to listen to you.
Okay. Let's begin then.
So Ruma, you've just taken us through 3 stages of leadership. You've built this analogy in my head that it's like a building.
Mm-hmm.
The control style of leadership has the lower floors. The relational leadership has the floors above that. And the higher the access that you've got access to the lower floors. The lower floors don't have access to the higher floors.
Mm-hmm.
The highest floors that you gave us access to was this thing called sacred leadership. And the definition that stuck in my head was you're in that space when you are in service of the whole.
Yes.
There's also another thing that you said that complemented that we are not separate from our environment. And this to me brings the entire concept of separation. And I'd like you to shed a little bit of light on separation.
Yeah. Okay. So, just a little bit of refreshing. So when we spoke about being in service of the whole, and the whole actually means everything, in very colloquial terms. So the sacred stage of leadership is actually where the leadership impact is felt at a much more collective level. And hence, these collective dogmas that are there in our society today, like racism, sexism, casteism, any kind of other isms that actually separate. So these elements will start melting away in this stage of leadership. And that's why the term sacred feels so appropriate in this stage of leadership. Now, what is disrupting our understanding of the whole is this very unconscious separation consciousness, paradoxically. So it is separation consciousness, but it is also very unconscious. So what is the definition of separation? It is to keep things away, or to keep things apart. And if the things that we are keeping apart move further and further away, the gap widens, the separation widens. But why am I calling this as an unconscious element? Because, something that we see right from our childhood, and if we live this in our day-to-day lives, let's say, in schools, in our education system, all our subjects are separate. The history, geography, physics, biology, economics, music, whatever. So they are separate, and there appears that there are no links between them. And then as we grow, we talk about science, art, we call them as separate. Analysis, intuition, we call them as separate. Man, woman, we see ourselves as separate. Various genders. Now, in the workplace as well, we are organized in ways which, further enhance the separation, which is we are organized in departments because all our departments are separate. We are organized in terms of roles. Our roles are separate. And we also have this phrase, which we hear a lot, that we are working in silos. So you see how the separation is becoming further and further deep-rooted, and collaboration is an issue.
If there's just some thoughts in my head. I'm wondering if I can just share.
Sure.
So the first decade of my career, when I worked in one country, extremely male-dominated workplaces. And as far as I was concerned, that was just normal. That's how it was. It's only when I left the country, started to work in a completely different geography, that I became aware that why would I not have an equal ratio of men and women at work, right? That's something that entered into my consciousness at that point in time.
Yeah.
As I continued to work, while I saw men and women being equal, I did not see people with if there were people with disabilities, I would say, hey, why do I want that person? in my team, right? That person may bring us down. And because, again, I didn't see the whole picture at that point in time.
So stay there.
And
You just talked about I didn't see the whole picture. So you brought in the word whole. Okay, let me ask you to continue. You were continuing with something.
yeah, and what I'm guessing is there are other biases in there as well, which I still don't see.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think that the whole thing around color is a Western problem. Probably that's not true, because if I think about it, in my current workplace, I'm probably going to get one or two types of people over to my place and entertain them, but someone belonging to another race, I may not reach out as easily as I would. I wouldn't make that effort, right? I don't see that as a problem in my head today, but it is, because I'm very unconsciously, I am drawing the lines there, and this entire concept of separation that you called out.
And yeah, and I can say, because I know you for so long, it's you actually invite differences. You actually believe that differences make us rich and richer. And I feel we have gone a long way. We have traveled a long way when it comes to including differences. Another aspect, which is actually separation. So even though we understand differences, we are including differences. What we are unconsciously doing is we are keeping things apart. And why we are doing this, that's one of the things which which is a key ingredient of this stage of leadership, is actually to integrate rather than to keep separate. And integration over here means first understanding and becoming conscious and aware that our whole language, our vocabulary, our lives, these threads of separation, they are actually woven so deeply into the fabric of our lives that we don't even realize that we are separating. And just take another example, work and life. Work it seems like, and is bred into our society and culture as something that requires effort. And work is something that we actually do to earn money. And life is everything else that does not earn money. And this whole thing of work and life balance means that we are keeping, or we are understanding, or we are very unconsciously separating out the two. So you see how deeply woven the fabric is, and this awareness around separation is another thing that needs, I feel like needs to come in, particularly at this stage of leadership when we are growing or when we are evolving. So I also want to bring in this, that there is merit in separation. Because having these separate subjects, having these different departments, it allows us to be more efficient. It allows us to go deep, versus broad. And deep and broad is like the ocean, right? And how many of us can actually be the ocean, right? So there is actually merit in separation, and which is why we have that. It's just that those chasms, the separation has becoming so big that we need to start looking at how do we reduce this. And that's where we start coming more towards the whole and serving the whole.
Again, Ruma, this highly resonates, because at least in the past 3 companies that I've worked at, one of the mantra has been, you put the customer first, you put the company second, and you put your department third. But not all of us think that way, right? We belong to a particular department, and then we fight like cats and dogs to make sure that our department stands out and is better than the next one. And then you realize that it's not in service of the company, which is the entire set of people that are working as one. It's not in service of that. And it's not in ultimate service of your end customer, which is why you're making your product at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, That resonates.
And a common purpose starts reducing the separation in organizations. And yet, because the threads are so woven within us, bringing in not just awareness and working through these actually helps us go closer or a few steps higher in this apartment building that we talked about. One way, and what is external? So far, we have talked about external. We see separation outside of us. There is also what is outside of us is actually inside of us, where we are separating. There is separation even within our own inner selves. So outer selves, we have talked about separation, and separation within our inner selves. How do we do that? See, these are things that we are not aware of most of the time. Anger, jealousy, all the negative emotions. And we are human beings, we have all kinds of emotions. So all the negative emotions are separated from the positive emotions. It's almost like we have three containers. One container we want to visit again and again, the positive container. And then there's a second container or the second bucket where we involuntarily or inadvertently reach, but that's very uncomfortable. So that bucket contains, say, sadness, grief. Yeah. And then there is this third bucket, which we want to get away from, or we don't, we have just shut it and, kept it in the dark storeroom. That is the hidden bucket, which contains all the things that we are ashamed of. And, anger, jealousy, hidden desires, and so many other things can be over there. So you see how we are creating separations even within our own self. So starting and serving the whole can actually work first by integrating or serving the whole self, ourselves. So by integrating these three buckets that I mentioned, or the three containers that I mentioned. And it cannot be done all alone. We need help, we need guides, we need very strong, good buddies. We need, strong, good coaches, therapists, spiritual directors, mentors, guides. Different people might need different kind of support, but we need support to be able to integrate or start reducing the separation within ourselves. And as we are doing that within ourselves, we also start to see separation. Right now, we can't even see separation. If we see separation, we will do something towards it. But we can't see separation. And the whole idea is to start seeing separation first, maybe with our own inner selves.
Ruma, now you left me with lots of takeaways, because I thought this was going to be pretty simple. I thought that unlocking the doors to the top level was all about having a common purpose, and it was still external. But I love the way you flipped it on its head and said that the method to get the keys to the sacred stage of leadership is you grow into it. It's not something that you are handed the keys to. You grow into it. And a lot of that growing has got to do with working on yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's only when you see what you don't see that you can then effect that change into the world in front of you. So that, at least that's what I understood from this conversation, and it's really deep. And I intuitively understand that, I can't do this on my own. That help is needed for this, for there to be a buddy, a guide who handholds me through that process.
Yeah, and that's one of the ways. I'm not saying that's the only way to get to that or to go to that penthouse level. And all these things that we have grown into, from control, from relational, all that interdependence, co-creation, everything comes into play and kind of holds us as we are walking or climbing our way to the penthouse. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ruma. That was a fantastic conversation. Thank you.
Thank you and see you soon, Shahrukh.
So